we get experimental science. We're curious, non-judgmental.
Guys, Galacticat, she is down in Australia, and she's got this really, really cool species of ant. And she found this water bottle, and it was covered with these giant ants. So these are huge, and I was like, I don't really see a good look at their mandibles. You can see a little bit. They're quite long, and they're very wasp-like. So these are called jack jumper ants. They're a more ancient species of ant, and the way you can tell that is because of the shape that they have. So that long wasp-like body is the ancestral state of these animals, because they evolved, both ants and bees evolved from wasps. And so having this wasp-like body is pretty on par, like, for evolutionary timing. What are these ants, Balint? I was like, man, these are jack jumper ants. And she's like, oh god, because we talked about that they have a very potent venom, so potent enough that they can send you into anaphylactic shock. And I was like, can you get more pictures? And God goes, maybe? They actually have a paralytic in their venom. It's a neurotoxin that puts essentially their prey to sleep. They don't eat dead prey, they only eat living prey. And that's, most of the ants that are this kind of shape have that. So they're actually visual hunters. So actually, you can see here, the eyes are a pretty sizable part of their bodies. I think even this one, it's quite more visible. How long ago? Hanny, the missing link in evolutionary time is about 150 million years ago, is it looks like when the start point hit, but we can't fully nail it down in terms of sample, because we only really start finding ant-like creatures that have diverged from wasp and amber about 100 million years ago, but we estimate back in time it's about 150. But it could very well be different. It's just if you were able to find more samples. So the giant eyes here, like you can see how much of the headspace is eye, means that they're visual hunters. And Galacticat mentioned that they're pretty chill. So is that these species can actually perceive you. So most ants, if you dig them up, like the small picnic table ants, if you look at them, they can't perceive you as a visual thing. You're just like this shape. These animals, because they have so much of their brains dedicated to their optic lobe, that's the eye tissue, they can see you pretty clearly. And so actually here is a 3D printed ant brain. This ant brain is actually much more like what these animals have. These side circles are the optic lobes, here and here. And you can see it's quite a large percentage of this 3D model. The optic lobe of a carpenter ant is about 1/4 of the size of this lobe here. It's atrophied and shrunken down to that level. So again, you can tell based on their head appearance and their eyes, the retina, what their brain is going to look like as well, which I think is cool. Even these ants, like most ants, are very olfactory or smell driven. And what's wild is if you blow on them, they will start to go crazy. They will very rapidly change their behavior and perceive you as a threat. This colony is super cool. And then this is what I was looking for. So these mandibles, as you can see, are not for biting. These are for picking things up. And so you can actually see, like, that one's like doing like some probing behavior to see like the wood. So like they're trying to move stuff around in building their nest site. They don't, like, even if they tried, they could not bite you. Like the closing force, see that this is like the closed position of this mandible. And this actually, it's a really cool image. Yes, they do jump. In fact, this seems to be a theme of these kind of visual hunters, is that they jump. The one that I worked on, it's called the Indian jumping ant, and you'll see some physical similarities between them. What did wasps evolve from? Hip, that is a great question. The current hypothesis is that we don't know. There seems to be a hypothesis of social trajectory, and we can see the different social states across time represented, like everything from fruit flies, mosquitoes, paper wasps, to bees and more, but we don't know those links in between them because the samples just aren't preserved. And so it's very difficult, and you can't get genetic samples either, physical or genetic, so it's hard to know what exactly they are. So Galacticat, they're not gonna bite. Instead, they use those mandibles to hold onto prey. And so the reason I know this is because the ants that I worked with did very similar behavior. They will hold onto your finger with those mandibles, but then the danger is they start curving their abdomens. And that body curve is they're getting ready to sting. And same thing with the Indian jumping ant. It just welts up like if it was some kind of wasp sting. Depends on your definition of summer, Hanny. Some ants that are in the southern hemisphere hibernate during the time of the northern hemisphere's summer, so that's the closest one. I do not believe there is one. However, Hanny, there are 20,000 species of known ants. So our recent study is saying more than half of Earth's species lives in the soil. If you count bacteria as well, I would say probably the majority of them live in the soil. Because like you have an absurd number of species of bacteria, fungi, and more that are in the soil as well. So it's not a surprising statistic to me. Surprising it's not even higher, yeah. But a similar species that I worked with, Harbignathus, is one that I work with, and you can see the body shape is very similar to what Galacticat showed us. So you can see it's very wasp-like again, and you can see the stinger quite well where the venom gland is coming out. There is those large mandibles coming, and so it's a very similar component there as well. I work with 3 different species of ants. So those eyes, because they're so big, the optic lobe of their brain, which is this visual center, is also correspondingly large because they're, again, visual hunters. And they actually also jump. So actually, they're called the Indian jumping ant colloquially because they also have this crazy jumping behavior, similar to jack jumpers, because again, they hunt live prey like crickets, spiders, they'll even tackle cockroaches. They grab them in their mandibles, they curve their abdomen and sting them to paralyze them. After they're paralyzed, the animals never wake up. Sorry, they're always awake, they never start moving again, which is wild to me because they don't eat dead animals. They have to eat living animals that have been paralyzed by that venom. And that's just a quirk of these species. And here is the male as well in the background. You can see how different the male is in terms of shape. Like, look at that head structure. It's super tiny. It still has big eyes that's just a function of flying insects usually have large eyes so they can perceive the world around them. But the rest of their head is super tiny for the male. And it's because the male's only function is to live about 2 to 3 weeks, mate, and then die. So they really don't need a big head or a big brain for anything. They also don't eat adult males. So if you look at them, they do have a little opening where they can drink nectar, so sugar water for energy, but nothing like that for, like, no feeding, no hunting, no anything like that at all. Yeah, Hanny is, they're born, they mate, they die. And it's seasonal usually when they hatch. And for most species. For this one, this species is insanely cool. I don't know about the jack jumpers for this behavior that Galacticat sends us, but this is a worker. What's wild is if I isolate this worker, put her by herself, she will become a queen. And so any worker in this colony can become a queen. And that's, most ant species do not do that. Most ant species, you're born a queen, you die a queen, the workers are workers forever. If you lose the queen, the colony's dead. This one is able to have this really cool behavior. You can isolate any worker and they'll become a queen. Or if the queen dies within the colony, the ants have a battle royale where they fight each other, and the winner of the fight gets to be the new queen. I don't know if the jack jumper ants do this behavior as well, but there are, again, a very few species that do this. These look very similar to Galacticat's ants that she was sharing with us. These are the Harbignathus, but these are the ones Galacticat found, the jack jumper ants. Again, they're huge mandibles. They look similar to bull ants. They're basically, their coloration is the telltale sign. Bull ants are much more brownish yellow, and then these darker shade individuals. They're also Galacticats in the south of Australia, so these are endemic to the south of Australia as well. So the geography and coloration is giving us those components. This is in Australia. You can see it has similar mandible structure to the jack jumpers. They are also wingless. They have that same body style with the venom gland here. And the other thing, Galacticat, that tells me that you did not find bull ants but jack jumpers is that they did not attack you. Jack jumpers compared to bull ants are pretty docile. Bull ants will regularly go after anything and everything in their way. In fact, it is suggested you do not keep these as pets, the bull ants, because they'll go after pets as well. And so you have to be really, really careful in where you're keeping them and why you're keeping them, and just, yeah, you have to be safe. You have to be very safe when you're keeping bull ants. And Galacticat might be like, why on earth would you ever keep bull ants? There are a lot of folks who keep these species as hobbyists. Yeah. So Galacticat, these ants are very smart, and they have a morgue near their particular site. So if you look around their nest site, there should be a pile of what looks like dirt and just like debris. They take their dead outside. And so you can place a dead body into ethanol as well, and it'll preserve it. All you're trying to do is preserve the exoskeleton and the structure, so you can get from there as well. And this isn't just jack jumpers. Many ant species will have a trash pile. The leaf cutters have a trash pile where it's like decaying fungus, where that is almost the compost pile essentially, and then they'll have a separate location for their dead, and then others kind of just throw everything together in one area. And the way they can tell is odor. There's a molecule called oleic acid that's on the outside of a dead insect, a dead ant. And when that odorant they detect, they take that individual out. And you can actually buy oleic acid on Amazon, take a Q-tip and paint it onto a living ant, and she'll be carried out of the colony. And then until the odor wears off, and then she'll be able to allowed back in. It's not something that we would regularly see. I see more open mandibles, so you can see they're doing building behavior. That's the nest site. I don't see a trash pile readily here in these images, but I'd imagine it's probably nearby.